Hey everybody, Cindy here. So in the last few days, I have been reached out to quite a bit by people that I both know and I don't know, asking me what they can do to help fight and combat anti-Blackness. And so I wanted to hop on here and make a quick video, um, sharing 10 different things that I think all of us can do to help fight anti-Blackness. The first one is education and learning about the history of not only African American people but anti-Black racism, which really go hand in hand. So go beyond, learning about the grand narrative, like figures that are really important and notable and influential, like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and learn the more silenced histories, like people like Sojourner Truth and Ida B. Wells. And also, I specifically recommend that if you care about this topic, inform yourself with Ibram Kendi's Stamp from the Beginning, which is a fantastic resource that can really help you understand just how embedded and designed anti-Blackness has been into this country. And the 1619 Project by New York Times is also a really great resource. And when we learn the history of, African American people and anti-Blackness, we can stop blaming African American people and communities for the disparities that exist within the communities and start blaming the broken and the racist systems that have allowed these disparities to not just, exist, but they continue to persist, right? Also, listen and learn to the voices of Black Americans. Believe it or not, there are more people in this country, more Black people in this country that are credible beyond Oprah and the Obamas. We have so many brilliant scholars and authors and thought leaders that we could and we should learn from. So just to name a few, James Baldwin and Bell Hooks and Toni Morrison and Angela Davis and Ta-Nehisi Coates and Kimberly Crenshaw and Michelle Alexander and Layla Saeed and Minda Harts and Austin Channing Brown and Rennie Lodge, and I'm sure I'm missing so many other people. I will link as many of those names as I can in this post, but there are so many people that you can learn from today. That are posting, that are writing, and these voices really need to be heard, and they can help us to understand the injustices that Black people continue to face daily, from microaggressions in the workplace to things like the maternal mortality rate. Another thing is to be willing to take a hard look in the mirror and examine our own anti-Black prejudices and biases, and actually how we contribute to anti-Blackness and this problem. Um, you know, Anti-Blackness, like I said before, has been so carefully designed into the DNA of this country that it's sometimes largely subconscious for many of us, especially for non-Black people. And so it's really the responsibility of all of us to look in the mirror and to examine them and to identify them, because if we can't see our own biases, then we can't disrupt them. And we won't be just successful in disrupting anti-bias. And one practical thing that you can do, and easy enough, is to go to Harvard's Project Implicit website and take the race implicit association test, to find out a little bit more about your own biases. I would also say to be intentional of supporting and donating to organizations that are actually working to change the anti-Black policies and laws, and also change the anti-Black people in power. And it's really important to support these organizations, because the whole goal of activism is to change policies that oppress people. So support organizations like Color of Change, Black Futures Lab, and Real Justice PAC, because they really are organizations that are doing the work on the ground to change anti-Black policies and laws, and there's nothing more important than that. Another thing that you can do is call on your local politicians to use their platform and their voice to condemn anti Black bigotry when incidents happen and just in general. So it could be your alderman or your city council member or your senator or your mayor. We just really need people empowered to support Black lives and to help disrupt anti Blackness in order for it to actually happen. Be intentional in voting for politicians, and also be very intentional about voting for politicians who are pro Black unapologetically. That's really important. Make a conscious effort to get to know African American people. You know, we tend to exist in bubbles. It's human nature to surround yourself with people who look like you, who remind you of yourself, who have the same religion as you, same background as you. But we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to open our minds and learn about the world if we just kind of stay in our bubbles. And we're not going to disrupt the faulty stereotypes and biases that we've learned about Black people unless we get to know them. And so I'm not suggesting that you go out and make a new Black best friend, to fulfill this, because that would be horrible, and not authentic. But really just get to know the people that exist in your everyday life, right? Just get to know them better so that you have a framework to understand Black people, and that you can see that, Black Americans are not a homogenous identity group. They're heterogeneous and dynamic. And so that might be getting to know your post lady, friendly banter with your post lady, or getting to know your Black neighbor better, right? Make an effort to get to know Black people. And you will probably realize that you have way more in common with them than you ever thought. Use your privilege and advocate for and work on behalf of the advancement of African American people. So, in order to truly achieve racial justice, we can't only work to end the oppression and the inequalities of our own social identity groups. We have to work on behalf of other groups and the oppression of all groups. So, in the multiracial world that we live in, racial justice has to be a multiracial effort. And yes, that means we have to include white people as well in our efforts. Find the courage to talk to your families, your communities, your friends about anti Blackness, and also call out anti Black thinking and comments and actions when you see it. Don't ignore it. Fighting anti Blackness can become uncomfortable. I can tell you that firsthand, but there's nothing more uncomfortable and traumatic than experiencing racism, right? And so being an ally takes courage. And if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, then you're not willing to engage in this work. So it's really important to, if you want to make a difference, you have to use your voice, and you have to have the strength and the courage to confront anti Blackness when you see it. And it's so important that you start with your own families, you start with your own communities, because that's where you have the biggest impact. Avoid strengthening and recentering whiteness, because when we align ourselves with whiteness, then we're really essentially perpetuating anti-Blackness, because anti-Blackness lives within whiteness. So it's so important for us to really make whiteness visible and work to decenter and denormalize it. So there's really not one way to do this. So many people have different approaches. Some people make empowering t-shirts. Some people will use makeup to normalize Black and brown beauty. Some people use their artistic talent and illustrations to call out whiteness. And other people just, share insightful social media posts. It doesn't have to be anything profound, but the truth is, all of us have a platform, and all of us have a voice, and it's on all of us to use that voice to make a difference. The last thing that I have to say is commit to work on being anti racist. And realize that being anti racist isn't something that happens overnight, over 1 year, over 4 years, over 10 years. It's really a lifelong, continual process of listening and learning and reflecting and making mistakes and growing. And so it's really important to not just talk, but to walk our talk. And I've given you 10 ways to walk your talk to help combat anti-Blackness. And I hope that all of you will take action today. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you all soon. See you later. Bye.